check 1, 2, 3. This is Benny on dispatch. Yo, atención. Okay, we got traffic on the west side.
Oh, interesting. That'd be a fun conversation to have.
Left side is Riverside Drive and Mike Slide. West End's your best friend if you catch the lights and don't take the Deegan. Manny Ramirez is in town this weekend. Sorry, Dominicans. Take Route 87, you ain't getting back anything. All right, you're good. Cool.
Answer differently about present versus not present?
I don't think I'll answer differently. Did you just make that up? What you just said?
Oh no, it's from Lin-Manuel musical thing.
You were blowing my mind for a second. I was like, how is he doing that?
Oh, I do freestyle though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. All right, cool. Feel free to like move
The seat?
Yeah.
All right. I have my phone behind me, but I feel like that's probably best, unless it's down there. I guess I could put it on the floor. You don't put it down here? Yeah, that'll pick us up. All right. Are you going to do it too? Record also? No. Okay. I think it's recording. Yeah. All right.
All right. So you said that we're all good, right? Cool. All right. What's up, man?
Hey.
Yeah. So as you know by now, my name is Denzel, and pretty much how this is gonna go is I'm gonna ask you a series of questions, and there's no right or wrong answer as long as it's authentic to you. And so the way that you interpret the question, and then the way that you respond in interpreting the question and all of that, that's all telling of what your personality type might be.
Okay.
And what I'm looking for is not just anything like having to do like behavior, but like the actual mental wiring of your mind.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to, in a way, like look for the coding and be able to give you language behind all of the things that you do and why you do it, despite however you might behave and etc. So yeah, I think the first question, well, before that, do you have any questions about this process so far?
So it sounds like it would be helpful for me to articulate my process around understanding the question as much as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As much as you be able to.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, then if anything, I'm supposed to be giving you the language for it. So if anything, like I said, no right or wrong answer. The way I see it is that I'm trying to help you find your best fit type. So at the end of the day, you're the one who tells me if the type is right because it has to resonate with you. But all I can do is just like make sure that I get as much information about you as possible, so that now from your own mission I can tell you what I believe what type that you are, and then we can go through the verification process on that. Yeah. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds
Awesome.
good.
Cool. And Jason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Well, Jason, the first question I'm gonna ask you is, what could you do? Something that you love to do, that the only reason why you'd stop is because you were exhausted, otherwise you'd go on indefinitely.
I think I could do, the only reason I would stop is because I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Otherwise you would just keep on doing this thing.
There are a few things like that.
Yeah.
I think producing music, like,
you're a music producer.
yeah,
Nice.
I'm a musician,
Oh, nice.
and there are a lot of aspects to it, but the thing that really like takes me down a rabbit hole where I lose track of time, maybe more than anything else, is like tweaking in the tiny details.
Really?
Until every last moment of the thing is like beautiful and exactly the way that I want it.
Gotcha.
So when I get into one of those, all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. or something like that. And I actually notice the same thing sometimes with video editing. It's another one of these tasks where if I get into a rhythm, it's very tweaky and fine, and I lose track of time.
So you already have what you want to produce in your head already, and now it's just all about bringing it out, or are you kind of like playing along with it, and then as you're going with it, you're like, oh, this would be nice, and then you start tweaking it?
It's interesting. It's different things at different times. Sometimes, often I feel like I know exactly what I want, but I'm open to unexpected surprises in what I'm getting back from my effort.
Okay.
The software that I use will have unanticipated errors in it, and sometimes the error creates something that I never thought of, or I'll make a mistake in my work,
Oh, yeah.
and then the mistake turns out to be really cool and different, and I think, oh wow, this is so not me. I should keep this as part of this thing because I would never have thought of this, and that's like where the genius is, or something like that.
Wow.
But
This
then
is so not me. I should probably keep this and use this.
Yeah, basically. It doesn't always happen that way, but
Of course, yeah.
yeah, I feel like if I were just in this process of like, I know what I want and now this is it, my music would get stale. So to allow for these like unexpected surprises and embrace them, yeah, it's like the X factor. It introduces something kind of magical and beyond me into the thing that I'm creating.
That's actually really fascinating, because what I'm hearing you say is that although you tweak a lot, and it seems like you're very precise with what you want, you're also paradoxically very, very loose with when something goes wrong. And you're like, whoa, and then you can make a masterpiece out of that too. So like actually also very flexible and not as rigid with the tweaking.
Yeah. I mean, very flexible seems like a little bit of a, like, maybe that's going too far.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I'm still fussy, but
Okay.
but yeah, I'm open to those moments for sure, and I value them a lot.
Gotcha.
And there's so much more I could say about that.
Yeah, if you want to, you can go ahead.
All right. Well, the one other thing that comes to mind on that, like how the creative process works for me, I know that it's working when I feel something, particularly with music. And part of the reason that I get drawn in and want to stay is because in the course of these efforts and the surprise accidents and the actually going for what I think I want and getting it, I'll have moments of deep feeling, like just kind of overcome with emotion. And those are the moments when I feel like it's working the most.
Wow. Okay, awesome. What would you say is a close second?
Something that I could just keep doing and doing.
Yeah.
There are two. One is dance,
Nice.
particularly kind of free-form movement without steps.
Nice. Okay.
The tricky thing about that is that I actually do get tired after 45 minutes or something because it's physical exertion. And the other thing is like deep, intimate connection with another person, particularly like in romance.
Right.
Just being with someone in a kind of timeless space where there's nothing to do and nowhere to go. Because there's so many things I want to do in my life, and there's so much like stuff, and I like the stuff and the busyness and productivity, when that is completely suspended, and I realize that I've totally lost track of all of that, and I don't even have to go right back to it.
Right.
It's wonderful. That's a wonderful
I'm
feeling.
really seeing your face light up. That's I can tell. That's an amazing feeling. I really relate to that too. Dude, that's awesome.
Feeling connected.
Really helpful.
Feeling connected is like,
Feeling connected.
that's the.
And would you say this is like connection with anybody, or connection like with only like the significant other?
I've had these experiences in groups. I've had these experiences with friends. I think they're most potent and poignant when they're in romance, because I feel like in the context of like a single romantic relationship, it's maybe the only place where I feel like there's nothing I can't do or say. So there's no sense of needing to monitor. Not that I monitor much with a close friend or something, but if I had like the sudden impulse to like kiss my close friend, that I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a way that there's extra freedom in romance.
Would you say that so in saying all of that, would you say then that if it were up to you, that you wouldn't have those types of boundaries with friends, and so therefore it'd be like a free form type of connection, but it's more so because of maybe other friends' boundaries that you don't want to overstep? Or is it more of like, no, like I wouldn't even have such an impulse, like not even necessarily like going to the extent of like kissing a friend or something, but like, like that deep intimate connection? If I'm hearing you correctly, like, yeah, is it more of like, oh, well, I'm the one who like restrains that because I'm trying to protect them, and but if it were up to me, I would prefer that openness? Or is it like, oh,
Nah, it's not. I don't feel like I'm tucking something in with my friends, my close friends. I feel like I can really be myself.
that's awesome.
The way that I want to be. There are things that I don't do, like, I don't want to kiss my friends.
Right.
I don't feel inhibited around
Got you.
the people that I love.
Got you.
Generally.
Okay, that makes sense.
Maybe if I do, it would be more often in romance, and that's just like when my hang-ups come in, and then I'm not living this thing that I actually want.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, speaking of friends, so if I were to go to like your two top best friends, for example, people who know you closest, how would they describe you? Like if I were, you could even like imitate them if you want to. Like, like if I were to go to them and be like, hey, so I'm actually profiling Jason, and he doesn't even know that like I'm not asking you or anything like that, but I just want to know, like, what would you guys say about him? What do you think that they would say? What do you think they'd tell me, whether it's true or not?
God, what they would say about me has so much to do with who they are. I'm thinking of my friend Nicholas. He's one of the many things I love about him is that he's so like appreciative and sees so much goodness in me. So when I imagine that, like, there's a part of me that I think doesn't even see myself quite as positively as he sees me. So I'm trying to like put myself in his mind about me, and disregard the part of me that doesn't even believe it fully. What he would say is, I think most people think that I'm very articulate, and I think he would say that. Like, he has expressed to me at times that he really appreciates how well I put things into words. Part of our connection is through meditation. We're both meditators and have both been meditation teachers at times in the past.
Cool.
So it's specifically articulation around states of consciousness or meditation experiences, or how to support people in that way.
Gotcha. All right.
And another thing that he would say, that he has said, is something akin to like, you could be a great therapist. When he has like an issue, interpersonal issue that he shares with me, he tends to find my guidance like wise and broad-minded and supportive. But it's interesting because the things I'm saying, just thinking about how he would describe me, are different than the things that I think about myself generally, like descriptors that I think people see in me just on a larger
Oh, yeah,
scale,
I'm sure.
not specific to him or
Sure.
another best
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah. Well, then, what would you say then? Like another best friend then would probably say. Also.
And you're saying specifically best friend, not romantic partner.
Actually, yeah, you could even do that too.
Okay. It's hard because she's sitting here. I don't know if you should or not.
I didn't even know she was still here.
Yeah, she's like right there. Well, it's so weird that I'm like kind of blanking.
Is it something that you probably don't think of often?
I don't think much about what. I don't think as much about what specific people would say about me. I don't think. I care about what people think of me.
Right.
But somehow, like, being able to, like, articulate their thoughts about me, at least the people that I'm thinking of. So now I was thinking of my friend Blake. What would he say? Yeah, it's really hard to imagine. And I know that he loves me. If I think of Carla, she says that I'm articulate. I think she would agree with that. I think she thinks I'm kind.
That's good.
Okay, I've got one. Most people find me unusually earnest. At times, like, sort of allergic to sarcasm, or not allergic in the sense that I don't like it necessarily, but more that I miss it. Like, I miss when people are,
Oblivious to sarcasm.
yeah, oblivious would be a better word.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't catch it.
Interesting.
Funny also. People think that I'm funny.
And that's like intentional? Or is it like
It-
moments where it's like you were oblivious to sarcasm so that they laugh at that?
80% intentional, 20% funny moments that I don't even realize. And I'm actually really touched when that happens. When someone's like smiling and laughing and I don't know what it was that caused that, I feel seen in those moments.
Gotcha.
Like someone sees something in me that I'm not seeing in myself.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, you did allude to the way that some people might see you is not like necessarily how you always see yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in knowing that too. Like, how would you describe yourself to me? And you could repeat some of these things
Mhm.
that you said earlier that others might say or think about you, or you can like disregard some of them and even be like, nah, you know what I mean?
Okay. In fact, I thought of a couple more that other people would say.
Oh yeah, sure.
The closest people in my life would all agree that I am really good at using structures to support my life. The dark flip side of that is like rigidity at times. And I think most people feel like I'm kind of a rare combination of like creative with that other thing, with that like structured thing. Because it seems like more often people fall into one bin or the other. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. And
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I've forgotten your next question.
No problem. Yeah, the next one, how would you then describe yourself?
I agree with all those things.
Okay.
Uh,
So even the things that Nick said about you,
I don't remember what I said he said. What did I say he said?
About being articulate.
Oh, yeah.
Therapist, all of that.
Yeah, I agree with that stuff. Yeah, I was a peacemaker in my family growing up,
Oh, nice.
for better and for worse.
That's interesting.
So-
you're like one step ahead.
Oh.
This is good. Yeah, because actually I'm going to be asking about your family
Okay.
next. But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's kind of natural for me to like. I like it when other people feel comfortable. I have an intuitive sense of how to make other people feel comfortable. Sometimes I miss it, but generally speaking, that is the case. Historically, at times I've done that at my own expense, but at its heart, there's a gift in that, I think, just in terms of interpersonal dynamics, social skills. I agree with the articulate thing. I love words. I love using words.
Nice.
The hardest thing about moving to a country where they don't speak English for me would be giving up the fluidity and the dexterity of my use of language.
Oh, dude, I get that. Absolutely, I get that.
Because like I could probably get by in Spanish like a year from now if I moved to Spain or something like that, but it would be a decade or 2 decades before it felt like English. Maybe never. I don't know. So,
Got you.
yeah.
Got you. I see.
I think a lot, but I feel a lot. I used to not feel. I used to just think.
Huh.
But it's been a while now.
How would you describe the difference between that?
When I was younger, it was all just kind of like strategizing to get myself through the world, cognitive strategy. I think then and now I've been pretty sensitive to social dynamics, aware in my relationships, but then it was like, how do I figure out what to say, when to say, and much more inauthentic actually. And now, at my best, words just come out. There's like an impulse to convey or speak or share or listen or whatever it is, and it's just allowed to come out, and it comes from a different place than all of that strategizing stuff that I used to do.
Interesting. Okay. That's good. That's really good. So you kind of already alluded to this, but how would you describe your childhood, like including your family dynamic?
I was the first of 2.
Okay.
I have a younger brother, but I was effectively an only child for 6 years, my first 6 years. The dynamic was it's like somewhere between the best childhood and the worst childhood that you could imagine people describing. Like my parents like checked the basic boxes in terms of like there was food on the table, somebody tucked me into bed every night. I wasn't like afraid for my safety.
That's nice. Felt very,
Yeah,
like, cared
they
for.
said I love you a lot. There was like physical touch. And at the same time, there was misattunement. I didn't feel understood or seen at times by my parents because they were, my perception looking back is that they were kind of locked in their own view of things in certain moments, or just like prioritizing their own needs over mine when I was very young. So the reason I became a peacemaker was because that was kind of the role that was needed, it seemed. And I feel like when you're a really small child, you just kind of figure out how you need to fit into the dynamic. And if the caregivers aren't like just nurturing every impulse, then those particular impulses kind of get switched off. And I think that's kind of how I got to be sort of cerebral and strategic and inauthentic, because there were certain expressions of self that just didn't feel welcome or didn't go over well when I was younger.
Could you go a little bit more into that?
Sure. Like examples?
Yeah. And
yeah.
how you would feel like maybe that was like inauthentic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. So my dad had an anger problem. He never hit me. He would yell, and he was large, and that was frightening. And I'm not sure if this is going to wind up with me describing an inauthenticity, but let's see where it goes.
Yeah, sure. I'm all for rabbit trails.
Okay, cool. So I would like experience his wrath kind of at random, or that's how it felt. It seems to me that like something would upset him, and then it would just kind of come out at me. So I'm like 4 or 5 or something like that, and it would be like, "Why didn't you clean your room?" And he's all angry. And again, looking back, I'm thinking like these probably weren't age-appropriate requests. But at the time, I just had this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm in trouble again. I'm doing it wrong, and I wish I could have figured out how to keep this from happening. Like nothing I can do seems to be able to keep me out of trouble. So however much I strategize, these like random screw ups happen, and I had this inbuilt sense of like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong again. I screwed up again. So yeah, how does that get to inauthenticity? I mean, the whole idea of I think that introduces a certain kind of self-doubt. You know, like I think I'm doing this human thing right, but then like periodic random kind of attacks on my choices creates a sense of self-doubt, and the self-doubt becomes it sort of fuels a sense that, well, then I better think twice about how I behave, and I can't just like allow the expression to come out. I should like second guess myself, and that is a kind of a manifestation of inauthenticity. And it was different with my mom. I could tell you about the mom part too.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
With her, I think there was some inversion in the relationship, like some sense that I needed to care for her. I think that was true for both of them in different ways, like ways I needed to be so that they would feel whatever they needed to feel to take care of me. And with my mom, as much as she encouraged me and rooted for me and supported me, I think some part of her didn't want to let me go. On some deep level, having me go out into the world, even going to school, was like hard for her. And I felt that. So I just kind of internalized it. Like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to daycare. I just want to be home. And I think somewhere in me I knew that that was like managing her psychology so that I could get the care that I needed.
Wow.
And again, that's essentially, it's like inhibited exploration and inauthenticity in order to get care. And this is stuff I've thought about a lot, so I'm trying to be like fresh in my recounting of it and description of it to you, but it's not like this first time I've thought about this stuff.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. So, I think what I'm trying to also now understand is that you said that in your family you did feel like you felt cared for and it was like safe, intimate. They told you that they loved you. It almost seemed like perfect amount of care. And of course, no family's like perfect, but it seemed like they were very attentive towards you and everything. But then this also seems like indicate, like you said, that at times you felt like you were unseen at times and everything, and like misunderstood. How would you say like that duality worked out in the family, where it's like, oh, like everything seemed perfect, and then there were also times like everything just didn't seem perfect in a way.
Like, you're asking me to kind of explain that?
Yeah.
Well, I think in a way maybe the contradiction comes from me speaking from different frames of mind. And I know that one of the things that was kind of installed in me was a sort of idealizing of that time and of my parents.
Gotcha.
And I think in any early childhood where there's stuff, it doesn't compute for the kid to say the parents are screwing up. Maybe when you're 10 or 12, but not when you're 4.
Gotcha.
So it's got to be I'm doing.
Okay.
Or I'm just going to kind of like space out and kind of paste over it that it's all going great.
That makes sense.
So I think there is like it's not like it's false that I was tucked in every night. I was.
Right.
But there is a sense that I had at the time that this was a good life that was somewhat like pasting over or like idealizing what was actually happening.
That makes total sense.
And while I did get attentiveness from them at times, other times they were wrapped up in their own shit. At times I got attentiveness from them, but it was misattuned. So they would give me something, but it wasn't actually the thing that I wanted. It was like the thing they thought that I wanted or the thing they wanted for me, in terms of like a certain type of touch or certain type of like verbal response. So yeah, those were moments where we were interacting, but on some level it wasn't soothing.
Got you. So it's kind of like, if I'm understanding correctly, would that be where they misunderstood you? Like you felt most misunderstood because it's like you always felt loved by them, but they were just not showing their love to you in the way that you felt was the most receptive or the most desired.
Yeah, I guess I would distinguish love and care.
Care. Yeah.
So it's like
That's
they
good.
loved
That's
me,
good. Yeah,
but the
yeah.
ways that the care happened were not the ways that I wanted it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Either
That
because
makes
they
sense.
thought I wanted it and they were just like not right, or they had an agenda that kept just like was more important, which of course is going to happen too in childhood. It's all just kind of a balance, but yeah, it's like a lot of I love you, and then the care actually wasn't always the ideal manifestation of I love you.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So you touched on this a little bit as well, but I want to know a little bit more. How would you describe your relationship with your feelings?
At this point, strong, pretty clear. I can't get far without, I can't get far in the wrong direction without getting a clear message from my body that I have no choice but to listen to.
Wow. That just come to mind?
Yeah, I'm just saying that right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are articulate.
Oh, thanks.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, just you asking the question like kind of had me drop in, and there's nothing I love more than that's pretty hyperbolic actually. There are things that I probably love. Well, I don't know actually. Maybe there's nothing I love more than feeling. it's like part of the texture of reality is emotion in every moment. It's like, did you ever see Inside Out, that movie?
Yeah, that was such a beautiful movie. So many metaphors and analogies that could be brought up from that.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. Yeah, I've seen it.
And remember how they would color, all the marbles had colors?
Yeah.
So it's like every memory has an emotional flavor.
Wow.
And then at the end of the movie, they have like more than one color per marble.
Yeah.
All of that richness. Yeah, and it happens in real time. And I think part of the reason I love it so much is because I used to be cut off from it. And it wasn't until like 2013, 2014, 2015 that I could feel in real time. And I felt like I joined some secret club. And I would go around the world, and all of a sudden I could tell who also could do it and who couldn't. And it was like, oh, you have that. You're in the club too.
Wow.
And for some people, this is just normal. Like, they just kind of popped out of childhood like this. So they probably wouldn't even be able to describe it. It's just life. But for me, it was like an epiphany.
It like just came later, and then ever since then, you just couldn't stop.
It came with much struggle, actually. It was a big challenge. Meditation softened Meditation softened the like suppression mechanism. It like loosened the cork on the bottle. And then I started feeling things that I didn't know what to do with, and I was overwhelmed, and spent a bunch of years just trying to develop a relationship with the sensations of emotions so that I could deal with this thing that I had uncorked. So, yeah.
Would you say that you're more in tune with your own feelings than other people's? Or
at my worst, I conflate other people's with my own. And I can't tell whose is whose. At best, I'm very clear about both.
okay. And has that always been that way?
I think the further back in the past I go, the more conflation was happening. The less clarity. And in my cerebral days, I may have been responding in my behavior and in my cognition to other people's feelings, thinking they were mine. So not only was I not even, I wasn't feeling mine, I wasn't even feeling yours, for example, at least not on a conscious level, and all my mental spin and even some of my behaviors were responses to how you were feeling, which is also very inauthentic. But like many layers from just being like, I feel this way, you feel that way.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. So, would you say then the way that you assess things, do you assess your feelings first, and then from there you're able to assess everybody else's? Or would you say it's like the inverse of that, where it's like, okay, from understanding everybody else's feelings, I'm able to now understand what I feel and what I desire?
So I'm interpreting feelings as like emotional states?
Yeah.
That's what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you could also interpret it like if you talk about desires, it's like
Right.
what I want, what I don't want.
Yeah, and then we can actually go into that too.
Okay,
Yeah,
because I'm thinking,
there's a difference for you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, I would answer differently, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I would love both answers.
Okay,
actually.
so if I go back into the past, again, I feel kind of compelled to give you like a how I used to be and a how I am now.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So further back in the past, in terms of desires, what I want, don't want, it was often my own were wiped out by the desires of the people around me. Great example is when I would go out to dinner with my family. If my mom like tasted something that I had on my plate and didn't like it, I wouldn't like it anymore. Which I'm smiling about it, and even as I'm smiling, I'm like, this is not okay. Like,
Wow,
there's
yeah.
something off about that.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, but that's a great example of like my desires are being kind of what's it called? Displaced. And I think the emotions kind of worked the same way. But now, like you're asking, in what order?
Yeah, because you said that you are usually aware of both.
Yeah. So in what order does that happen?
Yeah, like how would you explain maybe like the way that you feel like that works? Is it like, which one most resonates with you? Is it like, okay, from understanding everybody else's feelings and from kind of like getting the vibe of everybody else's, it's now influencing how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's where I'm kind of like operating from. Or is it like from understanding my feelings on such a nuanced and deep level, then I'm now able to find that match between me and then what other people are feeling, and kind of like be like, oh, this is what you are feeling based off of like things I found within myself.
I think the former,
Okay.
it's there's like a process, a sequence of functions.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because of the work that I've done and the repair. So the former thing you described is a more inbuilt function for me. Like there's a kind of subconscious, automatic taking in of the group or the other person that influences how I feel. And then on top of that, subsequently, there's like an, oh wait, especially if there's something off, I'm like, wait a second. And then this more manual secondary process comes in, which is like, I've got to differentiate here so that I don't like mistakenly respond to someone else's feelings thinking they're mine. And then I touch in like, what's going on for me? How do I feel? And then it becomes very clear what's going on for me, and I can feel what's going on for them more clearly as a result. So it's sort of like the first thing and then the second thing.
Got you. Okay. Yeah.
But I definitely operate by the latter, rather than the former as much as I can, because I feel like that's a safer, truer way for me to
Okay.
be.
Makes sense. How in tune would you say that you are with your body and reality altogether?
With my body, very.
Very in tune with your body.
Yeah. Wasn't, but I am now. I'm sure if you like watch the recording of this, you'll see moments where I'm just kind of like in ideas and thought forms and not really feeling in the moment. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but when the moment calls for it, if something's off, if I want to fully experience something, if I'm not in a huge rush, I'm like super in tune with my body. I'm.
You weren't always that way.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to that kind of cognitive way that I used to be. The various challenges of my early years and the experience of being an authentic is really painful. And I think I didn't want to feel it. I couldn't bear to feel it, I don't think. So I just kind of suppressed a lot. So I wasn't super coordinated. I didn't do a whole lot of sports. I could do a lot of pull-ups when I was a kid, but I wasn't like coordinated particularly, and I wasn't feeling my emotions either.
But now you would say that you're like very in tune with your body. And
Yeah, and my reflexes are really fast. I've never broken a bone. Dance is transcendent. I've been doing a dance practice for like 10 years, and at this point it's deeply moving to be the witness of what my body is doing. And it's sometimes incredibly fluid, and it's sometimes incredibly precise. But all of that to say, I feel like my body awareness is very high. Yeah, and it's mostly thanks to meditation and thanks to dance.
Okay.
Talk about experiencing the richness of life. So yeah, I get the connection between that and reality, because if you think of reality in terms of like what is being tasted, touched, seen, heard, even thought in a given instant, very in touch with that. I don't space out much. Not much. I mean, I can like wander off in thought, but like dissociating or like that spectrum, I don't think so.
Kind of aware of your surroundings?
Well, that's an interesting question. Not necessarily.
Okay.
I hyperfocus.
Yeah. Okay.
So I could describe myself right now as very in touch with reality, very present. But I'm present with you. So like, I just realized there are two people sitting over there having a conversation. I had no idea, like I don't hear their words. If you asked me like the color of the wall behind me, I wouldn't be able to answer you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's because it's like right here.
That makes sense. Yeah. But, okay, yeah, that makes sense. However, like then when you're like going out and about, even when you're quote unquote lost in thought, you're still aware of the surroundings around you? Or is it like focus internally?
Yeah, then it would be hyper-focus internally, I would say. Yeah, I certainly have the ability to like drive home from work and not remember my drive. And I may have come to some useful conclusions or plans in my mind about some other thing entirely, but yeah, then it's the same kind of hyper-focus thing, so it out contracts and in expands.
Wow. Got you. Okay. That makes sense. What is something that you believe is obvious to you, but then other people seem to not really catch?
That's such a fun question. I love that. A bunch of things.
Oh, good.
Everything is always changing.
That's something that's obvious to you, but other people don't seem to catch it.
Some people do.
Of course.
I mean, everyone does on some level.
Yeah.
But I think even me, I don't catch it always. I don't even think it's possible to catch it always. That's like, that doesn't make sense really. Yeah. But the level to which we create a sense of solidity about whatever it is we do that about, that is relentlessly overlooked. It's like systematically overlooked. We're designed not to see that, I think. Like, you are a person, and I am a person, and ideas are like these tight little boxes, and that's a desk, and it's hard to even articulate because it's at every level this is happening all the time. This like congealing of the wash of experience into forms and ideas and concepts and people and colors and numbers, and all of that is happening all of the time, and it's clear to me when I stop to notice it in a given moment, and the fact that everything is ending as by virtue of that. It's all just ending, and the poignancy of that it's like almost moving me to tears just right in this moment.
Wow.
So yeah, that and what that means is that all of the moments of joy and connection and like the heights of ecstasy that we can experience are all like interwoven with ending. with grief, maybe even, or sadness on some level. And not to say that they're not wonderful. Maybe that makes them even more wonderful.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like the sadness is always there. And that's not a bad thing. And to other people, like when I've tried to articulate this, most of the time they're like, why are you being a downer? Like, no. Like, can't we just write a love song? Or like, what? Or like my like music business advisor, we had a kind of an argument when I was trying to write my bio, because I was trying to describe this, and he was like, no, this is not going to land right with people. They're going to think you're like nihilistic and sad. But yeah, this is a concept that that seems obvious and beautiful to me.
Yeah, it does. So, because it's not really necessarily as nihilistic as people might seem or feel like that's how you're projecting it. Because I mean, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you have a fascination with that, and it's more of like a, since it's so beautiful, then let's enjoy each passing moment. Let's enjoy the beauty of everything that seems to come and go. It's like this ebb and flow kind of like mindset. Am I hearing that correctly?
Totally. Yeah. What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Like, jump. Do the thing. And my life has changed in one part because of meditation, and in one part because I jumped. Because a few years ago, I was like, something needs to be created through me musically, and I'm not doing it, and I've been getting nagging voices for years that I need to do it, and I finally did it, started in earnest, and kept going. And that was me kind of acting on this insight. Like, okay, yeah, everything's changing, and time is passing, and you don't get a moment back. So go. And that was my going. And it has been just as transformative as these other big pivotal things that I've described to you in terms of changing my life and helping me be authentic and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
That makes sense. Okay. What is something else? You said there's several
Things that I think are obvious that other people...
that other people may, or most people probably don't catch. Probably even like baffles you at times. Like, how is everybody not seeing this?
Yeah. I think I thought that the thing I just described to you would need to be broken up into more than one piece. So, but I'm just wondering if there's anything else. What's obvious that other people don't see? Something like that they don't have to live the way they're living. And I say this carefully because there's a lot of privilege in saying that, and not everyone shares that. And I'm really privileged that I could find a way to work half-time, for example, so that I could spend a lot of time on creativity in the last few years. That said, a lot of the people in my midst are also very privileged, and I think a good percentage of the people that you run into on the street in an American city have an ability to shape their lives into something that is probably more fulfilling than where they're at, but they're just kind of doing it the way they've been doing it, because we go through the motions and we're not paying attention, and maybe we're not feeling, and maybe all the little boxes and concepts that we've created for ourselves are not being questioned.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I notice that seems obvious and painful to me, that I don't see other people noticing.
And is it something that you contemplate about often, too?
Yeah, it's something I write music about, and poetry about.
Wow. What would you say is the aim for your music and poetry? Is it more for getting out a message for other people to hear and think about and kind of process, or is it more of a self-expression, I just need to get this out of me? Of course there will be some overlap, but which one would you say that you lean more on?
You're asking what the message is, or what the
maybe like the purpose
motivation.
Of your motivation.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely have to do it. I have no choice. And when it's coming out, especially when it's like really coming out, it doesn't feel like me. But I would say, to the extent that I'm able to influence the thing. Good question. Gosh, maybe on the deepest level, it's connection. To connect with someone who's listening.
Wow.
So that the thing that moves me to tears while I'm tweaking away in my studio moves someone else in the same way.
Wow.
And what was touched in me that is like beyond words is also touched in them. And neither of us knows how we could have gotten there.
Wow.
Except through this weird combination of sounds.
Wow.
Like, that's a beautiful experience.
So, and when you say this weird combination of sounds, it's like an instrumental even that you're trying to produce, not even always having to do with lyrics?
Yeah, not always. Yeah, sometimes it's a line of lyrics that just, like the combination of words just gets you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a chord or a set of chords or just adding that one extra harmony part that all of a sudden makes the thing sing and like drill down into the soul. It's hard to know what actually happens, but yeah, it's not always lyrical for sure.
Wow, that's awesome.
But yeah, I want to share that with people.
That's beautiful.
And I don't even mean share in the sense of like give it to them. I want to have a shared experience of that feeling with them.
And that's probably what you would say that is your probably biggest motivation for why you create the music that you create.
I guess so. Yeah, and then I would subdivide it. Like there are kind of sections within that. One of them is feeling seen, feeling understood, personally. One of them is inspiring people to think they can change, and to see the things that I've been talking about, thinking are obvious, and that other people don't think are obvious. Like, I want to use my example as an inspiration. Like, hey, you don't have to work 80 hours a week in an edit bay. I work in post-production at my day job, so I see a lot of it's like robots. And yeah, a lot of unhappiness.
Yeah. Wow.
So
then you're kind of like giving out a message to set them free.
I mean, when you put it that way, it sort of sounds like pretty self-important. But I guess in a sense, I would love to inspire people to think that they can have more if they want more.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and also not only breaking out in terms of their the structure of their day-to-day, but also breaking out in terms of how freely they can express who they are, being willing to be vulnerable, to be authentic, because all of these things are just my journey. Like, I don't think we can talk. Maybe we can talk about things that aren't our journey, but I'm best at talking about things that I've gone through. So, yeah, helping other people feel like they can be authentic, being raw and vulnerable in my music so that it sets a tone, just like it would in a conversation.
Right.
This is great stuff. I'm glad we're recording this.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It's like, I need to be able to answer these questions.
You're doing awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I'm genuinely having a great time.
Oh, cool. Me too.
For sure.
Thanks. I wish Carla could stay.
Me too.
She left because I gave her the no. I felt like my answers were being distorted by her presence.
So she picked up on that?
Yeah, we kind of had like a little look. Yeah. And then she snuck back in a few minutes later, and I was sort of like, I'll have to share this with her.
For sure.
Shout out to Carla.
What would you say is something that's obvious to other people that you seem to like always?
Good one. Yeah, that's great. certain things happen in group dynamics that I just don't catch. Sometimes, like, there will be laughter, like everyone's laughing at a joke, and I'm just like, what was the joke? And because I'm so earnest, and I kind of default to earnestness, when I feel like something's off. Sometimes in those moments I'll be like, can someone please explain to me what just happened in the dynamic here? I'll even if it's at work or something, and people respond to me in a variety of ways when I do that. But yeah, sometimes I'll get clued in, like, oh yeah, it's just the other day it happened. Like, he thought that it sounded as if you were criticizing something, like something that maybe they're laughing at something that I said and I don't know why. And yeah, so there's like certain types of once in a while there's like an interpersonal cue in a group that it goes right over my head. Sarcasm is a good heading for some of them. What do other people think is obvious that I don't get? Everyone's so different. It's funny because I was able to answer the first question.
Yeah, and that's because we're always noticing what other people are not noticing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's
harder to notice
what we're not noticing. Yeah, by definition. I think other people have an easier time seeing multiple views on a situation. I've gotten better at this over time because I realized that I wanted to, and kind of had to. But some people have an inbuilt sense of multiple perspectives. You see it this way, I see it that way. In my family, it was more like there's a right way and a wrong way. So I had to grow out of that. In the way people use language in conversations and in conflict. I can hear when I fall into that, or when they aren't in that, like when people are kind of broad-minded. Another one is mentalizing. Do you know that concept?
I was just about to ask, what would you say that is?
As far as I understand it, mentalizing is the ability to be aware of and articulate one's own mental state in the moment while it's happening.
Okay.
And this is another thing that I didn't really have good training on early on. So all mental and emotional states influence perception. So every state that we're in is going to cause us to see the world in a different way, right? If you don't know what glasses you're wearing, you just think the world is the world, and it's the same as it was before. And if it all looks hostile, then it's because it is, rather than because I'm angry about something or whatever. So that skill is called mentalizing, as far as I understand, and I have not historically been as good at that as maybe the average person that I've come into contact with, and I'm working on that.
That's good. So would you say that although I see that you're clearly empathetic, would you say that it is something that you had to learn to do to be able to jump into other people's perspective on things? Or would you say that just naturally came easily to you?
I had to learn how to do it. Yeah.
And would you say that now you do that pretty well? Or it's something that's still like, oh wait, let me consider this perspective of the person that you have to kind of jump into?
I think I do it pretty well now. I don't know. Ask Carla. She'd probably have mixed answers. There are moments where it almost feels transcendent. Like, I'm with someone, they're experiencing something, and I can literally feel it and see it the way they are right then and there. And sometimes out of my mouth comes their next sentence, or the last word in their sentence, or something like that. Like it's like a merging.
Right.
And in other times, it's not that way. Yeah, I don't see that there's a different perspective. I don't see. Maybe I have trouble getting out of my own lens. I think I'm pretty good at it on the whole, at this point.
Okay. Gotcha. How much alone time do you need to feel like a complete person?
Alone time in itself, probably not much. But in order to not feel depleted with people, I really need to be being myself and setting the boundaries I need to set. Both of those two things have been a learning for me over time. And I need, at this point, to feel productive and like I'm moving forward on this project that has become a huge passion. So I will carve out a good chunk of alone time to make sure that third thing happens, the project stuff, my own work. I'll do pretty much whatever it takes to make sure that keeps going. If someone wanted to like work alongside me, I think sometimes it would be maybe a hindrance, but probably more often not. I like having people around. I feel energized by other people.
Nice.
Most of the time.
That's awesome.
I think you can stay at this point.
And would you say that that's pretty much like how it's been even as a child, like when you were younger?
I liked being around people when I was a kid. I did have alone time, but I didn't necessarily want it all that much. Maybe even slightly pathologically didn't want it. Yeah, like safer, more comfortable with people. Yeah, I had a best friend in grade school who would be willing to just leave the phone off the hook for hours at a time with me. So we were like doing homework or whatever in our own rooms 3 miles away from each other, and the phone's just off the hook. So if either of us had something to say, we could say it at any given moment.
Wow.
My parents were not happy about this. But for me, I think that kind of exemplifies my interest in staying connected to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Connection seems to be like a constant thing for you.
Yeah.
That you just really need.
That I really need. Constant thing that I really need.
Desire.
Yeah.
Is a better word.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I can't be alone. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. I think that anybody who can't be alone, or like who doesn't have like at least one or the other, like that's like an unhealthiness. Any healthy person desires to be with people and also can also be alone and switch between both.
I agree with that.
But your preference or desire like would be more inclined toward, if I'm hearing you correctly, connecting with others than to be alone. But if you were to be alone, then you could also be okay with that.
Yeah.
And when we were younger, then that was something that was a little bit more difficult for you, if I'm hearing you correctly, that, like you said, like it was more difficult for you to be alone when you were younger, and it was something that you almost avoided.
Yeah, certainly what I said, I can understand your conclusion from what I've said. I'm just reflecting now a little further and remembering that even then, I found a lot of joy in moments where I was engaged in a project, solitary, engaged in a project. I used to obsess over Legos. I had thousands, and they were like organized in all these little drawers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I could spend 6 hours or 8 hours in my room, like never, I didn't want to come out, don't bother me, I'm doing this thing, and that was deeply fulfilling time for me. And I could be totally alone. Yeah, so in a way, that's a mirror of the way it is now.
Got you.
You know?
Got you.
But I think there was a little bit more clinginess or something a little unhealthy about some of my Actually, the thing that was unhealthy about the earlier years wasn't my alone time. It was how I was when I wasn't alone.
Okay.
It was how I was when I was with people. It was the inauthenticity that I was exhibiting when I was with other people.
Okay.
Yeah. Which made it draining to be with other people.
And now,
No.
how do you like with that?
It's not draining because I'm not inauthentic. And if I do get inauthentic or inhibited, it like hurts like hell really fast. My body tells me, and I have to do something to change tacks.
What would you say is your most authentic self?
What is my most authentic self?
When you're feeling your most authentic, and, especially in a group of people, how does that Jason look like?
Oh, okay. Spontaneous, unfiltered. Definitely there's humor. Sometimes I use humor as a mask to hide, but more often I don't. I used to do that more. Now it's when there's humor and silliness, absurdity, those are definitely signs that I'm feeling free in the moment. I talk a lot. Maybe you've noticed.
I love it though.
Okay.
Yeah, especially it's not senseless talking. Yeah.
All right.
Everything has been very fascinating so far. It's like I would probably drag this on longer.
Oh man.
Oh, we have time.
Okay. In any case, yeah, I'm talkative. I use humor. Most authentic self. Playful, like comfortable in the volley of being social. Yeah, spontaneity is a really big piece.
But you're not usually spontaneous?
I would say more often than not, I allow the spontaneous impulse to come.
Okay.
I am that person most of the time, I think, a good chunk of the time.
Got you. So although you consider yourself to be like rigid, is that only when you're working on your production? But overall you're a pretty free, spontaneous
Good question.
person?
Yeah, the ways that I am rigid or structured in my life definitely extend outside of my creative work.
Okay.
I like to plan my days. I like to plan my weeks. I like to know what's going to come and in what order. I like it when other people manage my expectations and keep me informed. I will use structure in pretty much any domain in my life if it feels like things are kind of drifting off the rails or going in a direction that I don't want. Structure is the thing that I go to, whatever that looks like in a given domain, in order to kind of shore up and help me through a challenging moment in that domain.
So would you say then that you use structure to have spontaneity? You feel the most free when you have structure?
I guess so, yeah. Like within the right amount of structure, I'm able to be really fully expressed. And in my creative work, because a lot of it has been on my own,
Right.
it's gone so far as it almost feels like I am two people, the manager and the artist.
Wow.
And I'll have days or hours set aside for the manager to do his work. And it's like scheduling and bookkeeping and to-dos and deadlines. And then hours set aside for the artist to do his work. And the artist just has to look at the notes that the manager left.
Wow.
So the artist doesn't have to think about what's important. He can just like take the instructions and then like go and be timeless with it.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, but I haven't quite thought about it in that way before.
I really like one of the things that you said earlier about your ability to articulate is I love it.
Oh, thanks.
I really love that a lot. Yeah. You articulate yourself incredibly well.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, just Just give me a moment. I'm making a few connections.
Mm-hmm. This is fun.
Definitely is for me as well. Okay. What would you consider to be the real world? Like, or which are you most focused on? Your external or your internal?
Huh.
With, of course, the knowledge that we, of course, like, have a inclination toward both. But
Good question.
it's like most natural for you.
Oh man. I think my internal world. Yeah, like there is a lot of both. But yeah, I think my internal world is more of the default focus. If I had to pick.
All right. What makes you say that too?
I just like saw this kind of cascade of vignettes of images from my recent past, like moments of driving down the freeway, moments of sitting at a desk writing music, a moment in the shower, and I just feel like the connection with all of these moments is that there is a kind of I don't know if this is the right word, primacy, like making top priority, like prioritizing the narrative, the conceptual understanding that's happening in that moment, the combination of emotion and thought that's like kind of being mulled over and massaged. So I'm not like, I do love taking a shower and enjoying the hot water, but there's like stuff going on internally that's like being given time and space. And like I kind of like driving, but the same sort of thing. And when I'm making music, it's always deeply rooted in that space, that internal space, which in turn is coming from experiences that I've had in the world.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know, something about the soul seeming to be inside. Yeah. That's all I would say about that.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's good. What is your relationship to, like, what are you, do you find yourself reviewing the past often?
Yeah, I guess so. Often.
In what way?
A lot of ways. For inspiration, for writing, writing poetry. Yeah, that's a big piece, actually. Touching into old experiences in order to feel them again, so that I can speak from that feeling, and writing lyrics or poetry.
So do you find yourself kind of like recreating that feeling within you
In me, yeah.
to then evoke it, bring it out?
Mm-hmm.
And that's from maybe like an experience that you've had, and then you place an impression on that experience, kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. It's like the colored marbles in Inside Out. So I call up the experience of being on the beach with Carla in Hawaii in July, and all the feeling of that comes, and then I can write a poem about it, like a month later.
Wow.
Or something like that.
Wow.
And it's easier to make new words when I'm actually feeling the thing that I was feeling back then.
Wow. And this comes natural to you, would you say?
Yeah. If this is one of those things that's obvious to me that's not obvious to other people, then I didn't know it until right now.
Wow.
I thought that's what everybody does.
Wow. Wow.
Recalling memory, and in the recall having the emotion of the memory come also, so that the reliving experience is happening somatically and not just in image or words.
And how do you feel about thinking about the future? Like, do you often find yourself thinking about the future, and to what
Yeah.
extent, in what way?
Ever since I was a kid, I liked to have something to look forward to.
Okay.
And I actually think that's part of what I like about planning.
Okay.
It feels good to be able to be excited about something that I know is going to happen. So there's almost always something in that slot in my mind, if not more than one thing. And it's sort of like a crystal that I carry around. So like if I need a little boost, I can just like go into that bag and hold the crystal, and the crystal is, oh yeah, there's this thing that I can be excited about. Now I'm excited because I'm thinking about it. So I think about the future in that way. I would also say there are times that I ruminate about the past and the future.
Okay.
I try not to do this, and I have a bad memory. I don't remember things well. And I used to think that it was an attention issue. I think sometimes it still is, like I'm just not paying attention in the moment, and maybe that's me being in my internal world. So if I'm not paying attention in the moment something happens, I'm not going to form as good of a memory about it. But I think it's just like, it almost feels like my brain is more plastic than other people's. So like memories go away faster, but I learn new things quicker than most people do.
Okay.
So like it just wants to be rewired. It wants to be rewired. I took up meditation really fast. Just one example. But the reason I bring it up is because despite having a bad memory, I do sometimes ruminate. Like I'll replay negative events. Feel scared about things that happened. It's not like, I think holding a grudge would be too strong of a description for it, but it's sort of like sort of a wariness about the past or something like that. And I intend to let things go. I like make deliberate choices to let things go. In my meditation practice, I'll do forgiveness practice around things that I notice that I'm holding on to try to like wire those memories in with forgiveness so that I don't do that. But yeah, there's rumination in my thinking about the past and also in my thinking about the future. Like, will I have enough money? Will I get the things that I'm going after before I'm like too old to go after them anymore? Stuff like that, yeah. And again, I'll employ structure in those cases. Like, if I'm worried about money, let's do a spreadsheet for the next year and see if I'm actually going to get evicted.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that I don't have to just be in the kind of amorphous emotional experience of it.
You prepare yourself for things that might happen in the future. If I'm hearing you correctly.
I would say yeah, I guess I do. I prepare myself for things that are going to happen in the future, both positive and negative. Yeah. Yeah, and mostly in healthy ways and sometimes in unhealthy ways. Like if I know something difficult is coming, I won't be able to not think about it also.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if I have a show to do, a week, 2 weeks from now, it's going to be like underlying, like picking at my sense of presence and peace for 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
Whatever I do, it doesn't matter.
I definitely get that. You said that memories go away faster
They do for other people.
than they do for other people.
I think so. Yeah. In high school, my friends used to call me Remembor. That was like my superhero name. And it was a joke on the fact that I couldn't remember anything.
That's interesting though, because then you also said that you use the things that you remember to produce your music, and that's like what you use to like inspire and things like that. So how do you
That's tough. The emotionally significant things stick the best. I would say that.
okay.
And those are the things that I'm mining for inspiration.
Okay.
And heck, I think if I had a better memory, I'd probably have access to a whole lot more of them. All sorts of things that are just like distant glimmers in the back of my mind that I can't really go into in detail anymore. But then what does happen is that they sort of become part of a network, like a constellation of things that contribute to a set of feelings and beliefs and views. And I can even be in that constellation if I'm trying to mine for writing. So it's less like the crystal clear event that happened and more like the kind of wash of associations, emotionally and visually, that might provide creative inspiration, might influence my choices in a given moment. Yeah, it's actually a fascinating thing. Sometimes I'll forget a word or a person's name, something like that. And I realize that all I have to do is kind of stop searching for it, kind of like hold the pointer of my mind over where I think the word should be, and then go, and just let go. And it kind of drops into this subconscious realm that I can't really go into in some clear way. And then the word pops up, or the person pops up. And what I have to start with is just kind of that network. Like I know I'm in the neighborhood of this thing that I'm trying to remember in my mind, but I don't know exactly where it is. So I'll just like rest in the neighborhood and see if the thing comes walking by. This is kind of bizarre what I'm describing, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely just like trying to piece it all together. You're so fascinating. This is like, yeah, no, this is really, really good. You're super, super fascinating.
This is like complex test.
I see why Carla is very interested in you.
Oh.
This is
All right.
is awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. I'm about to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
And just like push towards like a few things.
Okay.
So
You're now writing on the back of the cardboard of your notepad.
yeah, I know they don't make these big enough. This one doesn't have enough paper. It's all good.
Okay.
I'm keeping this. Would you say that you're more interested in interpersonal dynamics or feelings of, or your own feelings? Yeah.
They're so tied up with one another.
They are. And if you even have to vocalize the way that you distinguish the two,
Yeah.
then definitely let me know.
Okay. Am I more interested in interpersonal dynamics or my own feelings?
Right.
My impulse is to say interpersonal dynamics.
Okay.
I think that's probably accurate.
Okay.
And what's coming into my mind as I say that is, well, actually, there's a part of me that doesn't want to downplay my interest in my own feelings, almost like ego. Like, I don't want you to think I'm not interested in that, or like it would be better to be interested in that, or something like that. But so there's that, and then there's the sense that interpersonal dynamics are completely woven in with feeling. And I am fascinated with feeling, and feeling is so much more interesting when it involves another person. So that's the real truth of it. That's why I would say interpersonal dynamics.
Okay.
My own feelings isolation are way less interesting than the feelings that would happen if I was with someone else.
Wow. Why would you say that is?
There's a psychologist, Stan Tatkin, who wrote some books. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, there's nothing more challenging, or maybe nothing more difficult than another human being. And I think essentially that's an answer to your question. People evoke things in me more than places or experiences. It's like it's the people. My recording stopped. But I can get a copy of this, right?
Oh yeah.
Great.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
If you want, then I could even probably start recording off of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I could send it to you.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Just start.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah, so you're asking why. Yeah, I think in the absence of other people, all the things that I would do just wouldn't be as interesting. It's like, I went to Costa Rica by myself and traveled a bunch. And people do that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, I know people do this. I don't really feel called, but I think I have to. So we're just going to do it and see what happens.
Okay.
And it was hard for me.
To just like get up and travel?
Yeah, to go. I mean, I did have a reason to go. There was a workshop I was going to, but then I spent 5 days like in a rental car by myself, cruising the country and going to the things that I thought would be interesting to experience. And I felt like this is someone else's like absolute joy. And for me, it was a combination of fascinating and really emotionally taxing and challenging because I was by myself. And I would have been happy to be in charge of the logistics and make lots of decisions, but just having someone else there to share it with me would have made it so much better. So I guess that's why I say that, I don't remember exactly what question I'm answering, but I think that's the answer.
Yeah, like having more interest in interpersonal over maybe like just your own
Feelings, yeah.
That got you. Okay. What would you say your threshold is for conceptual conversation?
Very high.
Very high.
Very high.
How do you define conceptual conversation?
We're talking about something that isn't immediate and tangible. Talking about something more abstract. Yeah. 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 Like can't be held in one's hands or like put on a spreadsheet, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a framework or a sense of things or a philosophy or concept in Dharma, in like mindfulness. Yeah, very high tolerance for that stuff.
Okay, got you. Alright, yeah, I think that we're just about wrapping up. Let me make sure. Alright, I think one of my last questions would be, what is the biggest lesson that you had to learn the hard way?
Wow. The biggest lesson I had to learn the hard way. Okay. First thing that comes to mind is, and actually I think this is a really important thing to be voiced, in a community like this, people who are interested in personal growth and personality modalities and psychology. The thing that I learned the hard way was that we can think ourselves into whatever hole we want to, and sometimes we don't even know that we're doing it. And our very attempts at healing, whatever that means, are actually reinforcing beliefs that are keeping us stuck, keeping us feeling unwhole. It kind of comes to the idea of questioning everything on the spiritual path, on like the psycho-spiritual path, not leaving stones unturned in terms of the stories we're telling ourselves about what it's going to take to feel whole or complete, or what healing means. I had to learn that the hard way, in the sense that in 2012, 2013, when I uncorked myself and started feeling all this stuff, and a lot of it was painful and overwhelming emotionally, I adopted some beliefs about that and about the process to come to terms and come to peace with it that probably extended my suffering quite a bit. Like this pool of fear and sadness that are in my body are going to be there for decades, and it's going to take XYZ, and I'm going to have to like go on meditation retreats and suffer and like be in it. And that was my version of that. But I see all sorts of people doing this in different ways, like the person who goes to talk therapy for 30 years and is just like kind of like wallowing in. Everyone's got a different set of tools that would actually help, and a different set of defenses against those tools. And it's really easy to miss the fact that you're actually defending against something when you're engaged in healing. Because like you're like, no, I'm not defending it. I'm like here doing the work. I'm in the workshop. No, I'm doing it. But those are the moments when it's like most insidious. The things we're not seeing. Spiritual bypass people talk about. Always happening on some level, I think. But yeah, that was a long learning for me.
Wow.
Yeah, and probably still at times.
Wow.
Like, does that pool need to go away in order for me to feel better or to be whole? Do I need to like stop having XYZ emotional, psychological experience before I can enter a relationship? Before I can like leave my day job and pursue my music? It's all of these things that I like set up for myself as like barriers to entry. Maybe as a way of not confronting the fact that I was just like terrified to start my music career or enter a relationship or whatever. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to this.
Yeah, I'm positive. Wow. Okay.
Sometimes just doing the thing is the thing that's needed.
Yes.
To feel whole.
Yes.
Just saying the thing, just doing the thing. And
yes.
that was my long lesson.
Got you. That's good. Okay, I think I know what your type is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have a good idea of what your type is, and what I would like to do is go through the verification process.
Okay.
And see if it resonates. Let me know, because this is, in my opinion, part of the profiling, so that I can help see like, okay, so this doesn't match up, this doesn't match up, so this must actually be your type. But yeah, in the meantime, let's go through. So I just kept on running out of paper. You were just so awesome that
Oh.
yeah, I'm not even just saying that. It's just like, wow. Like, I had... I wanted to write...
Sweet.
All right. So, I have suspicion that you might be an E N F J.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. So,
That's what you are, right?
yeah. So, dichotomy-wise, just I guess like for camera or whatever. E. Well, let me go ahead and write these. So, dichotomy-wise, we have the E, which stands for extroversion, and the duality of extroversion, the opposite of extroversion, would be introversion. Granted, everybody has both dichotomies at all times. So, you know, there's never someone who's purely extroverted and someone who's purely introverted. But that mainly goes with which world is most real to us. And we're going to get into that, by the way, because I remember asking you that question, and you said that you actually feel like your internal world is more real to you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you my theory about why that is.
Great.
Yeah. But one of the things that you said was that pretty much, okay, I'll go through the dichotomies first. Yeah.
Okay.
So extroversion indicates that you have a focus on the external world. Like extroverts tend to respond more readily to the external world, they're more influenced by the external world and just more comfortable all around. Like that's where the real world is for them. While introverts, they tend to have more of a relationship with their internal world, and it's kind of like whenever they're going out into the external world, they have to like check back in with themselves almost, and they have to keep on like realigning like what's going on in their internal and external world, because they're afraid a lot of times of like not matching up with what's inside.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's essentially like how it is. And then when it comes to N versus S, intuitive versus sensing, so sensors tend to be way more in tune, like, you know, like with the reality, like with their senses and with things that are concrete, things that are very verifiable. They tend to have like more of an acumen for the things that, you know, we can just directly observe, that are more like empirical, that we can directly relate to. While intuitives tend to like to think about like things that are more theoretical and more abstract, more conceptual. They can sometimes be a little bit out of tune with their body, especially depending on which intuitive type that there is, because again, we have both parts of us in us. Feeling versus thinking. So every feeler thinks and every thinker feels, but feelers usually make their decisions based off of a subjective criteria that has to do with their values or the emotions of other people or themselves, while thinkers tend to make their decisions based off of like metrics and data points and like what makes the most sense, and pretty much an impersonal viewpoint on things.
Interesting.
Now, judger versus perceiver. So judgers tend to have a lot more structure to life. They tend to have like more of like a focus, more of like a direction on things that they want. While perceivers, they tend to be a little bit more, or sometimes even a lot more, like go with the flow and kind of like not really having like an aim or direction per se, or a necessity to organize their external world. And from not imposing on the external world, it's because they're keeping their internal world so organized and focused a lot of times. While with judgers, they have to be able to externalize their structure on the external world so they can have internal freedom.
Yeah.
Do you resonate with all of that so far?
Yes.
Awesome.
For sure.
Okay, cool. So I usually have my cards, and it's like, man, today I just didn't come prepared, huh? But pretty much the way that we can see it, and we can cross out this ISTP thing right here. There's 4 functions for each one. So aside from the dichotomies, each type has 4 mental processes. As an ENFJ, yours would be considered extroverted feeling, also known as FE, or harmony, which is the driver process. So like if we think about it as like a 4-person car. So if FE is the driver, then we have the co-pilot, also known, and that co-pilot for an ENFJ is introverted intuition. And this is also known as perspectives by Personality Hacker. And then the 10-year-old, they refer to the 10-year-old because pretty much the driver, then co-pilot, then 10-year-old, and then 3-year-old. That order that it goes through is our level of skill or development usually with these functions. And so the 10-year-old for an ENFJ would be extroverted sensing. And in a moment, I'm going to go ahead and define what all of these mean. And this is also known as sensation. Forgive my handwriting.
That's okay.
And then the 3-year-old, or our what we would call the weakest function, is known as introverted thinking, also known as TI, or accuracy.
Carla got what she wanted.
All right.
Okay.
So we're going to go through this real quick. So as your driver function, extroverted feeling, the way that I personally describe it is, so number 1, it's concerned with harmony. It's concerned with meeting people's needs. And I would also say that it's very in tune with interpersonal dynamics. Its biggest interest is actually interpersonal dynamics. It's seeing the line between me and you, and then me and Carla, me and Morgan, but then also the line between Carla and Morgan, and then Carla and Joel, and just being very interested in that bond between people.
Mm-hmm.
And from doing that, you're able to later on bring that to a grand level of things. So the way that Antonia often describes it too is oftentimes people who have this as a strength, when they were younger, it started off from something small, okay, I observed that when I gave my mom flowers, then it made her very happy. And so it's oh, that's interesting. And I also observed that when my father yelled at my mother, it made her very sad. That was also very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to keep a high level acumen of how people's interactions with each other
Mm-hmm.
affect one another.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you build and develop that, you soon see societies be able to do this. Whoa, this country is doing this to that country, and that's why they're having conflict, or this is why that's going on over there.
Uh-huh.
So FE as a dominant function is most attuned to this. And I also lastly would say that oftentimes it's knowing the exact buttons to push in the exact order to get an emotional reaction from an individual or a group of people. And so because of that interpersonal acumen that harmony drivers and people who have harmony in their front seat overall have, they're able to then know exactly what to do to be able to get a group of people inspired or to move in a certain direction or to feel certain emotions. So ways that I saw this coming out with you is, you said number 1 that your flow state, what we'd call it, is music production. And you said that one of the things that you love to do with your music, or your motivation behind it, which I found was incredibly fascinating. A lot of things were incredibly fascinating. We might not even be able to go through all of it. But you said that your biggest motivation from your music is not even only just to express, but it's kind of you're looking for somebody else. You're looking for connection through your music, so that when you express that, then other people are able to be like, I feel that too, and then you guys can share that experience or that feeling together. Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was something that I personally figured is like, wow, like, so your art, what you're using your art for, and expressing it through your emotions and everything, it's all a call. It's like a tribal call to, hey, let's all gather together and connect more on a deeper level, and let's experience these feelings together. Awesome.
Yep.
I also thought that it was very interesting because you said that others describe you as like very articulate and a great therapist. And in fact, you found it a little bit like easy in a way from my experience, like from what I saw, to kind of like see like, this is how these people are seeing me, this is how these people are seeing me. It's different depending on the person. And I thought that was like fascinating because again, you're in tune with the different people. So it's like, yeah, you know, like this person sees me this way, and this person sees me that way, and this person sees me this way. And you're kind of aware of like the ways that they're seeing you because once again, you have that that attention on that interpersonal dynamic. And I believe that's why Nick also said that you could be a great therapist because of how well you're able to look at the stress points of interpersonal dynamics and then be able to be like, okay, I actually see what's going on over here, and this is one way that you could probably like heal it. And I think that's also where your earnestness comes from. It's like, and your genuine interest in like knowing when you've missed something interpersonally. It's not even like oh, I just don't care or anything, but it's kind of like, no, like I want to know, like, what did I miss? Because you want to continue to gather as much of your intelligence for the interpersonal.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then
Seems
your
right.
articulation as well is a big thing, in my opinion, because when you are dealing with other people, when you're so focused on interpersonal dynamics, then the biggest thing that you need to be able to focus on is communication. You have to know, okay, how is what I'm saying going to land on what somebody else is saying? What is the best and most precise word that I can use to be able to describe whatever I'm feeling, to describe whatever that person might be feeling, so that we can somehow like get on the same page. Awesome. Cool. And there's just like so much, and like I'm gonna probably like be referring back and forth, but we'll move on to your co-pilot. So with every, but that resonates as a driver function for you.
Yeah, it does.
Awesome. Cool. So as a co-pilot function, so every driver has a co-pilot, and this tends to have an opposite attitude than our driver does. So attitudes are like introversion and extroversion. So if you are an extrovert, your driver's always going to be extroverted. If you're an introvert, your driver's always going to be introverted. And then whatever your driver is, then your co-pilot's going to have the opposite attitude. So as an ENFJ, then your co-pilot is introverted intuition. So the way that this could be described or defined is, and it's actually one of the most interesting, or not even interesting, but even just intricate and complex functions to describe. But so I'm going to try and explain different facets of it, and then let me know like how you think of it. So have you ever maybe like sat in church or a seminar of some sort, and as somebody's like saying something, or even like in conversation, as somebody's like talking to you, then it could spark a thought, and you're like, oh, thought A, thought B, thought C, thought D, thought E, and then you just keep on going until you reach like maybe thought L, and then you're like, whoa, how did I get here, and how does that relate to thought A? So then in a way you kind of like have you ever experienced that, like where you spring off into a series of thoughts?
I think so. I mean, the thing that comes to mind actually is moments when Carla will be like, what are you thinking? And I will describe the sequence, like the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it's like by the end of it, it's a very random different place from where it started. But yeah, I guess that's what you're talking about.
With introverted intuition, this is all subconsciously done, by the way. It's not a conscious thing. But those who have it in their front seat, so usually INJs and ENJs, so you as an ENFJ, you have it as a co-pilot, you subconsciously will have those thoughts, and then you'll get to thought L maybe. And
and that will be the one that's conscious.
Pretty much, yeah. You become aware of it. It's like, wait, how did I get here? and how does that relate to thought A? So then you'll subconsciously retrace your steps. I can't do the alphabet backwards. I should probably learn for this type of demonstration. But you'll retrace your steps all the way back to thought A. And then you can then see how A and L relate, even though they look completely different.
Yeah.
So then when people may now start so introverted intuition is also the function that's most known with being concerned with the future, or being able to predict what's going to happen in the future, or create what's going to happen in the future. And this is because of that process. I call it like metacognition. And so because you know how like A through L looks like, now you're able to project that into other people. And so when other people are now thinking like D, then you've already been down this path so many times. You know the pattern, because you're starting to understand the pattern of your own mind and the pattern of the pattern in other people's minds as well. So when they think thought D, then you're like, L? And they're like, whoa, how did you know that? How did you get there? Well, because it's all subconscious, then most introverted intuition users, they're like, I actually don't know. I don't know how I got there, actually. It's very interesting. And then on top of that, this is also why, in my opinion, you're super fascinated not only with interpersonal dynamics of other people, but also the way their minds are working. And so when we talked about are you more interested in examining your own feelings and thoughts and everything, or the feelings and thoughts of other people's, what I was gathering was that, it's like I can spend time by myself, but it's just so much more fascinating to not only share an experience with somebody else, but then to also kind of explore their minds in a way. And then even this was off camera, but I thought that it was interesting that you said that that you know more about Carla's personality type than you do about your own. And I thought that was very interesting in and of itself, because I see that as a desire not only to be able to create that harmony with her, but then also to be able to better understand, okay, how is your cognition working with that person in a way. So does that resonate with you so far?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And so that's also the reason why Personality Hacker, they call it perspectives, because it's being able to shift into other people's perspective oftentimes.
Yeah.
Now,
ironically, there were moments in our interview where I described a deficit at that.
Yeah. And I was picking up on that, and I was like, and there was just so many things that we're probably actually going to talk about it, if you have time, maybe at lunch or something, that I wanted to pick your mind more about. But function has a polarity or a duality. And so with introverted intuition, the 10-year-old in the back seat is known as extroverted sensing, also known as sensation. And this is pretty much the opposite of introverted intuition. So as a strength, people who have it as a front seat, they're very in tune with their body. They're very aware of their surroundings all of the time. They are quick to jump into things. They don't even think. They see things exactly for what it is. They're very in tune with their senses, etc., etc., etc. From my understanding, when I asked you about your relationship to your body, go through all 10 of these pages. You said that you pretty much have coordination, and it's much better now. You have dance has become transcendent and all of that, but you tapped into that through meditation. And I thought that was very fascinating, because with introverted intuition and extroverted sensing, it's meditation was what got you into your introverted intuition, which tapped you more into your body. And so with extroverted sensation, you now had that zen to be able to tap into your body. And then not only are you instead of them being just polarity opposites, you've learned to integrate them, and that's allowed you to become more comfortable in your body and being able to dance more. This also, I said, it's this function is responsible for you jumping into action.
Yeah, which I've become way better at.
And I would assume it's because you've become more centered with the more healthy your co-pilot will be, then the more healthy your 10-year-old will become, because they work together. And so you jumping into action, I believe it's because you become more centered and you've been able to have a clear mind of like, okay, I've planned enough. This is enough of like what the future is going to look like. So now I can prepare and I have confidence in how this will play out, so I know how to respond to it.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Totally. Yeah.
Awesome.
And when I was like 8, my mom used to make fun of me because I had to try on every pair of shoes in the shoe store because I couldn't make a decision. Like every pair. We'd be there for 90 minutes.
Wow.
So yeah, it's come a long way.
Wow. Yeah, and that's it's funny because then it's like, I mean, if you were to take this to metaphorical sense, it's like you probably try on the shoes of other people. You know, like you walk in their shoes before you leap maybe to make a judgment on them.
Sometimes I leap to judgment, but
That's funny that you say that, because that's literally what I was about to go to.
Ah.
It's like, so as an extroverted sensing 10-year-old, since it's not like a front seat, and it's the same attitude as your extroverted function,
okay.
so usually unhealthier ENFJs, they can jump to that, and like it's like FE and SE will work together, where it skips the co-pilot of introverted intuition, which is responsible for getting into the head of another person.
Oh, I see.
So instead, it'll just jump and it'll make a snap judgment.
Yeah.
Like, okay, no, like FE is like, that person shouldn't have treated the person that way.
Yeah.
And wouldn't take the time to even maybe try to understand, like, okay, well, maybe this is what was going on in that person's head and all of that.
Yeah.
So they'll probably be like more like quick to reprimand, while a more healthy ENFJ would be like, wait, let's go into introverted intuition. Let's see what's going on in their head. Let's review the sequence of maybe like what happened, and let's see what's really going on over here. And then you might be able to have like a little bit that might help and fuel your empathy and understanding of what that person's going through, and even hold space for them, and even be able to help them through that so they won't do it again.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, the way I experience it is sort of like there's a little bit of an old habit response that goes straight from a harmony to, what is this called?
Extroverted sensing?
Extroverted
Or
sensing. Or
yeah.
sensation, yeah. And then I kind of am like, let me go back a step, and that's kind of that. It's like this add-on.
Yeah.
If I'm not too cranky, tired, hungry.
There we go. Exactly. And then another aspect of that, having it in the 10-year-old, so people, like when they, like people with extroverted sensing 10-year-old, they can often, when they get stressed out a lot of times, then this could become like sensory indulgence. And so like maybe like they can drink a lot.
Oh,
or, like,
yeah.
They can like even like go, especially with ENFJs, then that FESE, they're not thinking long term because they're jumping ahead of that introvert intuition. So they might just be like, you know what, forget everything, and they may even like still be looking for connection, so they can even like sleep around. You know, and it's just like these quick hit connections, just to do anything to stay out of getting in their own head.
And what they're trying to avoid is perspectives?
Yes.
What is it about perspectives that makes it that they want to avoid it?
So perspectives is all about being centered, getting into yourself, trying to understand the long-term range of things, what's really going on, the meaning behind all of it. And sometimes, like an ENFJ, that tertiary extroverted sensing just gets like a little bit riled up and everything, and it's like impatient even, and it doesn't want to sit with maybe even darker thoughts that might be on the inside.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, you know, I just have to go out and I just have to keep myself busy. A
Uh-huh.
lot of times this could even be over helping other people. It's like, I'm going to try and fix everybody else
Yeah.
so that I don't have to focus on what I have to fix
Totally.
for myself.
Yeah.
And as an ENFJ, having extroverted feeling as a dominant function is like, you're really good at helping people, and you're really good at being able to like help fix them, if you will, or for lack of better terms, like at least helping them like see like what's going on with them, like so all the interpersonal things. But you won't be able to be at your best until you're able to like really, and not you by the way, like an ENFJ in general, until they're able to really develop that co-pilot, because that's what's really allowing you to get the best gold out of all of that.
Yeah, that makes
Does
sense.
that resonate?
Sure, yeah, the good and the bad of that.
Yeah,
For
but
sure.
clearly the 10-year-old is also really good too, because not only does it help you jump into action when you've actually planned enough from your introverted intuition, but it also helps you with at times of play. And so you said that you like to dance and everything, and you really enjoy being in your body. And then I think that you said something else. Ah, man. Oh, yeah, I think it's here. Oh, yeah. So you said that that's when you can become pretty much spontaneous. You become humorous. You become more talkative and more playful. Because now you've had the structure laid out and you're more comfortable, so now you're in a space of play. This isn't your natural state necessarily per se, as in like you're not always in that, but when you do feel comfortable enough to be able to relax, then now you're a lot more like spontaneous. You feel more free, you feel more comfortable to be able to make like humorous jokes and like be more talkative and just express without having to think. And earlier you said being inauthentic a lot. You know, now you don't have to think like, oh shoot, if I say this to Carla, what is she gonna say? And then get into all of that. You're just like, no, I'm free, so I can say this and I can have this free self-expression, and I do not have to worry about like any oncoming consequences. Does that resonate?
Yeah.
Awesome. So the last function, just like with introverted intuition and extroverted sensing, that's also a polarity, but it's with extroverted feeling. This is known as introverted thinking. So people who have it as a strength, they are very, very calculated, very digital. This function is pretty much all about like cutting up data into the most smallest like nuances to better understand something. It's the nickname for it is accuracy, and so it's all about like pretty much like refining a certain process on how to get a certain answer. It's looking at like crunching up numbers and data and everything just to be able to like understand from an unbiased point of view like what a conclusion might be. So the reason why that this is our 3-year-old is not necessarily to say that we suck at this, because a 3-year-old still can say very intelligent things, but it's not the place that you would want to be in because it's very detached, it's very removed from people.
Totally. Yeah, I can do that for sure.
Yeah.
And it trains me.
Exactly. So that's another thing. So like, especially when you're well developed and you're well mature, it doesn't necessarily mean like you never appreciate logic or anything.
Yeah, not at all.
In fact, a really mature ENFJ, just like, you know, with extroverted sensing, how you were able to integrate that with your introverted intuition, a mature ENFJ would integrate their introverted thinking with their extroverted feeling, even though it's like a polarity. But some ENFJs, like unhealthy ways that this may come out is a lack of, so those who have introverted thinking as a dominant function or a driver, they might have the opposite problem that ENFJs may have, which may be sugarcoating. The introverted thinking dominance, they might just tell it for how it is, and they won't think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
kind of like a tactless social response.
Yes, because then for them, conversely, extroverted feeling is their weakest, so they're not even aware, or they don't care because it's too taxing. Taxing?
Yeah,
taxing.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. For it's too taxing to think about how is whatever information I'm going to give going to affect other people.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just
problem.
wondered if my meter is expired.
Yeah, that's okay.
Shit. Yeah, it went off at some point. I might have a ticket. Fuck. That's why my recording stopped 40 minutes ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Do you want my key?
Nice. Dang, yeah, I hope that that's not the case.
Yeah, me too.
Shoot. Well, yeah, so because we have it, like, as ENFJ, because an introverted thinker, like, is last, then and you're so attuned to how everything that you say will emotionally affect people, then we're more concerned with saying things in a more tactful manner. Now, if you haven't integrated this, then you might then sugarcoat a little bit too much, and it might dilute the truth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it might even be keeping information back because I really like the good vibes.
Right.
And, I'm really connecting with this person.
Totally.
And
yeah.
so I know if I
Right.
tell them this, and
It's
there's
gonna
going to be a
throw it
little bit
off.
of disconnection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then
Totally.
that could be the case. But then once you've really integrated that function into your overall stacking,
Mhm.
then you're able to now be like, okay, I can actually tell this to that person, and I can trust that even if it causes conflict, sometimes we need conflict to be able to have true harmony. But
Yeah.
I can deliver it in a tactful manner.
Yeah.
I can deliver this in a way that will land properly and
Mhm.
allow the person to be able to even feel more connected with me because they appreciate the truth that I've given them in a more tactful way.
Yeah. All of us resonates completely.
Awesome, cool. And then another way that it's integrated is FE and TI, so extroverted feeling and introverted thinking. They always want to be on the same page when it comes to values and data / information. And so
FE and TI want to be on
Yeah.
the same page.
yeah, so their concerns like being on the same page since they're a polarity.
Being on the same page with each other,
Um
or with other people.
with other people.
Oh, okay.
So like a TI driver would want people to be on the same page with the data and information.
Got it.
Like, okay, why is my information and your information like contradicting each other?
Uh-huh.
We should probably like figure this out.
Yeah.
And then FE wants to be on the same page. Like, okay,
Emotional.
what are all of our values? Let's try and like find what's best for everyone.
Yeah.
How can we get that?
Yeah.
And so when you integrate the two, I think that the healthiest displays of this is creating a space where everybody values truth. And so now it's like, okay, since we all value truth here, then we will say things tactfully, but we're still going to be speaking our truth, and we're going to create a space where now we can show truth to people. We can express our truths, and then nobody's going to get butthurt about it because we're giving it tactfully. And then our responsibility from there is to then refine our processes so that we can all get to a better route of truth. Does that resonate with you, man?
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome,
sure.
Awesome, cool. And so I think I'm just gonna probably go through like a few other things just to like make sure, just to like give you some like more things. So yeah,
Pardon my yawning.
oh no,
I didn't
you're
eat
totally
breakfast.
good. I didn't either.
Oh, man.
You know, that's another thing, extroverted sensing, tertiary. Yeah, we don't pay as much attention to our bodies
Oh.
in that sense, and so
Yeah, and
Yeah.
on the other hand, I like will overeat at times too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But,
Well, all that indulgent stuff you said, I was like, yup.
Yeah, it's like, oh shoot, we gotta, because then the 10-year-old now is all of a sudden like, now you have to pay extra attention to it.
Uh-huh.
Which is another thing then also for like the 3-year-old, sometimes they can take care of themselves, or oftentimes that they take care of themselves in the sense that when, like, so there's this thing called the grip. And when we're like very, very, very stressed, we tend to fall into our grip. And so when introverted thinking is the grip, then this can come out as a critical, like an inner critic or inner like mean girl, if you will.
Oh,
to,
okay.
like you're not good enough.
Yeah,
You're
I have
not
that.
doing this properly, and it's just like very, very, very biting and makes you like insecure.
Yeah.
But it's also known as our aspiration function, which again like allows you to be like logical and all of that, and it makes you have like this aspiration to become a teacher or an expert in something to be able to better educate other people around you.
Interesting.
Because then you're now creating harmony by providing people this good information. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I do have that impulse, and it's not as strong or as fulfilling of an impulse as like the creative impulse we talked about earlier.
Yeah, which I would attribute to your NI and your SE. So like the middle functions where your creativity is like coming from. But yeah. Oh yeah. So one thing that I was considering, you started talking about memory. Oh, okay. We'll go with this first. So one thing that you said that was obvious to you is how like everything is always changing and dying, and it's like very like beautiful. I believe that that's introverted intuition paying attention to, and it's something you said that's something that you haven't even like sometimes you don't even like notice at times, and I think that it's like this attention to the trends of time. You know what I mean? To understanding how patterns change over time and how things like go, and like appreciating the moment, extroverted sensing, but then gathering the most meaning from that moment. And so that was something that I was picking up.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
how you can have more if you want more. So like you know how to go after the things that you want, and like because of introverted intuition and extroverted sensing, then you understand what dominoes to place to be able to manifest the things that you would like to bring into the real
That's
world.
the A through L stuff.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And the
I
more
really know how to
skilled
do that.
you become with that, then the more skilled that you're able with helping other people to be able to do it.
No.
Perfect.
Amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. And you said that you really enjoy being around people, but then you also can easily be just as good like by yourself, which to me that shows not only very healthy, ENFJ, but just extrovert overall.
Okay.
Because you are good with spending time with people and all that, which is where, as an extrovert, like that's where you thrive. But then also at the same time, you're very good with being by yourself and being able to analyze all of the interactions that you've received. So the most healthy thing that an ENFJ can potentially do is, and I guess like that's where I'll end it off, is an ENFJ is always gathering information on people.
Uh-huh.
Always gathering that information on people. But that introverted intuition is what's responsible for assessing the patterns that you're seeing throughout those people. So another way of explaining introverted intuition is, have you ever heard of the 5 blind men and the elephant? Okay, so there's this illustration where it's like there's 5 blind men and they're all feeling on an elephant.
Oh, yeah.
One person is like, okay, I think I'm feeling a trunk over here. Another person's like feeling on the leg. Another person's like feeling on an ear, whatever it might be. The way that I see this is that they're all feeling on their individual part of the elephant. And that's like an ENFJ like going out and like engaging with several people. So they're gathering information, But it's not until they go into solitude that the 5 blind men are able to now communicate the things that they've been
noticing.
observing.
Yeah.
And then they're like, wait, you're feeling an ear? You're feeling a trunk? This must be an elephant. And so an ENFJ is always feeling on the different parts of the elephant and everything. But until the ENFJ spends time in solitude to review those patterns and see all of these things of what society means, or like all of that, then these 5 blind men are not communicating, and the ENFJ will never see the elephant. It just has a whole bunch of information that it's always like holding and gathering that it's never assessing through. And then conversely, an INFJ, which is like the introverted version of the ENFJ, they're always having the 5 blind men communicate to each other, but they're not observing enough of the elephant. Okay. And so they would be encouraged to spend more time with people and engage with more people and gather more information. So they'll be able to then have more and more insights. So does that all resonate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. And it really it like establishes a justification and a support for my interest in meditation.
Oh yes,
which
that's a huge growth point for an ENFJ, and so it's really good that you do that, by the way, and that you're even a meditation teacher. But yeah, go on.
Well, that was it. And I've been like weighing the pros and cons of going on a really long retreat over New Year's, which I recently committed to doing. So I'll be in silence for 22 days.
Wow.
And from the beginning, it was like the new me kind of making this decision where I didn't need to like obsess over the choice and like get every little fact, but I did a reasonable assessment of whether this was the right thing to do, and then I kind of just went with my gut sense, which was that it was. And having this conversation and understanding that as a way that my blind men get to synthesize the data that they've collected, which keeps me whole and optimal, reinforces my choice,
Wow.
my confidence in my choice.
Dude, that's awesome. That's so awesome. If you don't mind me asking my last question, how old are you?
I'm 35.
Oh, great. Then your goals. I have time. I want to be like you when I get older.
How old are you?
24.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, but like, even like talking to you and everything, I was trying to not bias myself. I was like, he sounds like an ENFJ. I was even keeping myself from saying like, I relate to that, I relate to that, I relate to that. So I was like, nah, let me try and prove it wrong. But it seemed like so many things kept on pointing there. And I was like, well, if he's really an ENFJ, and this is kind of how I'm probably going to be when I get older, then I can't wait.
Sweet.
Yeah, man.
Right on.
The vibe was like awesome too.
Ah, cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, man.
My
I really
pleasure.
appreciate this.
Thanks for picking my brain.
Absolutely.
That was fun.
Yeah. Same for me.
We did it. All right, now be honest. Did I actually get a ticket?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna lie to you.
I didn't think so, but I was like, she's smiling and taking notice of it.
Dominant.
I was literally just about to make that joke. Like, she's not the FE dominant.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that either.